Ever catch yourself, like, wondering why you make certain money choices? Like maybe you splurge on a vacation when you know you should be saving more, or maybe you're like holding on to an investment even though it's tanking.
Yeah.
Well, today's deep dive is all about getting to the bottom of those head-scratching money moments. We're diving into The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. It's a book that flips the script on traditional financial advice and explores the often irrational, always fascinating ways our brains work when it comes to money.
Most financial advice focuses on spreadsheets and interest rates, but this book reminds us that money is ultimately about people. You know? And they're often very human decisions.
Exactly. We think we should be making these perfectly rational decisions based on numbers and logic.
Right.
But then our emotions come in and just like throw a wrench in the whole thing.
Totally.
So where do we even begin to unravel this?
Well, Housel kicks things off with this great concept. No one's crazy. It's a reminder that we all come to the table with different financial baggage, different experiences that shape how we think about money.
I love this. It's like that saying, don't judge someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes. Right. But applied to finances.
Precisely. Imagine someone who grew up during a recession, watching their parents struggle to make ends meet.
Right.
They might be hyper-focused on saving every penny, even if it means missing out on some opportunities.
Yeah.
It might seem overly cautious to someone else, but to them, it makes perfect sense.
Okay, I'm already starting to see how this book can help us understand not just our own money habits, but also the choices of others, which, let's face it, can sometimes be a bit baffling. So less judgment, more empathy. What else does Housel drive into?
He tackles this really interesting idea of luck and risk. It's easy to look at successful people and think it's all down to their talent or their hard work, but Housel argues that luck plays a much bigger role than we often acknowledge.
Oh, this is so true. I mean, think about all the factors that are totally outside of our control, like being born into a wealthy family, landing a dream job at just the right time, even just stumbling upon a great investment opportunity.
Exactly. And the problem is if we don't acknowledge the role of luck, both good and bad, we might end up making decisions based on this false sense of control.
So, someone might take a huge risk because they think they're destined for success, not realizing how much of it could just be down to chance.
Exactly. Housel uses the example of a poker tournament. You could be the most skilled player at the table, but a single bad hand at the wrong time could wipe you out, regardless of how good you are.
That's a great analogy. It's a reminder that humility is key, right? Acknowledging that we don't have all the answers and that sometimes things just happen.
Right. It's about making smart choices, but also understanding we can't control everything. It's a bit like accepting that life will always have some element of randomness to it.
This is all so eye-opening. I'm starting to see why this book is so popular. Okay, so we've talked about judging less, acknowledging luck. What else does Housel have up his sleeve?
Well, he tackles this idea that I think a lot of people struggle with. Never enough. It's this constant striving for more money, even when we have enough to meet our needs.
Ooh, this hits home. I think we've all felt that pressure to keep up with the Joneses. Always wanting the next big thing, the bigger house, the fancier car.
Yes, but Housel challenges us to define what enough actually means to us, what truly matters, what brings us joy and fulfillment. It's about aligning our financial goals with our personal values, not just chasing after some arbitrary number.
So it's like figuring out what kind of life you actually want to live, not just what society tells you to want, and then figuring out how much money you actually need to make that happen.
Exactly. It's about being intentional with our money, making choices that reflect our priorities, and ultimately finding contentment with what we have.
This is making me really think about my own financial goals, what am I actually working towards? What does success actually look like to me? What do you think, listener? Have you ever thought about what enough means to you?
It's a great question to ask yourself. And speaking of asking yourself questions, let's dive into another key concept from the book, the power of compounding.
Ooh, compounding. I always hear people talk about it like it's a magical force, but I'll be honest, I don't always fully grasp it.
Well, think of it like this. Imagine a snowball rolling down a hill. It starts small, but as it rolls, it picks up more snow, getting bigger and bigger.
Okay.
Compounding is similar. You start with a small amount of money, but as you earn interest on that money, the interest itself starts earning interest, creating the snowball effect of growth.
Okay, I'm starting to see the picture here. So it's not just about how much money you have, but also how long you let it grow.
Exactly. Housel uses the analogy of a penny doubling every day for a month. In the beginning, it seems insignificant, but by the end of the month, you're looking at millions.
Wow, that's incredible. So it's about patience and consistency,
Yeah.
right? Making those small, regular contributions and letting them grow over time. It's like slow and steady wins the race.
Precisely. And this brings us to another fascinating concept from the book. Wealth is what you don't see. It's this idea that true wealth isn't about flashy purchases or showing off how much you have.
Ooh, I like this one.
Yeah.
It's like true wealth is what's happening behind the scenes, right? The savings you're building, the investments you're making, the financial security you're creating for your future.
Exactly. It's about making those smart choices today that will pay off down the road. Like imagine someone who drives a modest car, lives in a smaller house, and doesn't feel the need to impress anyone with their spending.
Right.
They might not look wealthy in the traditional sense, but they could have a substantial nest egg tucked away, providing them with freedom and security.
It's like that saying, the richest man is not he who has the most, but he who needs the least.
Yes, it's about focusing on building a solid financial foundation that will provide you with options and peace of mind, rather than just chasing after the latest trends or trying to keep up with others.
This is making me think about all those times I've been tempted to make an impulse purchase. Now I'm thinking, maybe that money would be better off tucked away in my savings account, quietly growing and building my invisible wealth.
It's all about shifting your perspective. Now let's talk about a concept that might seem a bit counterintuitive, being reasonable versus rational.
Okay, this one has me intrigued. Wouldn't you always want to be rational when it comes to money?
You would think so, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Housel argues that sometimes being too focused on logic and numbers can actually lead us astray. Sometimes it's better to be reasonable, even if it means making a choice that doesn't maximize profit on paper.
So it's like sometimes it's okay to follow your gut feeling or prioritize something that matters to you, even if it's not the most rational decision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you have the opportunity to take a high-paying job in a city you absolutely hate. Right.
A purely rational decision might be to take the job for the extra income, right?
Yeah.
But a reasonable decision might be to stay put. Prioritize your happiness and well-being and find other ways to earn more without sacrificing your quality of life.
That makes so much sense. It's like money is just a tool, right? It's supposed to help us live better lives, not make us miserable in the pursuit of more and more.
Exactly. It's about aligning your financial decisions with your values and goals, even if they don't always make perfect sense in a spreadsheet.
I'm loving this concept of reasonable versus rational. It's giving me permission to make choices that feel right for me, even if they don't always follow the traditional rules of personal finance.
It's about recognizing that personal finance is personal. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. And speaking of personal, Housel introduces this idea of surviving versus thriving financially.
Okay, I'm curious about this one. What's the difference between surviving and thriving, financially speaking? Well, surviving is like being on a financial treadmill. You're just barely keeping your head above water, constantly worried about money, living paycheck to paycheck.
Oof, I think we've all been there at some point.
Thriving, on the other hand, is about feeling financially secure, having the freedom to pursue your passions, and being able to weather unexpected storms without derailing your long-term goals.
So it's like moving from a place of scarcity to a place of abundance, from constantly worrying about money to feeling confident and in control.
Exactly. And the good news is you don't need to be a millionaire to thrive financially. It's more about having a solid financial foundation, making smart choices, and building a life that aligns with your values and priorities.
Okay, so let's say someone's stuck in that survival mode, feeling stressed and overwhelmed by their finances. What's like a practical step they can take to start moving towards thriving?
One of the most important things is building a room for error, which is another key concept Housel discusses.
Room for error, what exactly does that mean?
It's about acknowledging that life is unpredictable and building a financial buffer to absorb those unexpected expenses, Things like a sudden job loss, a medical emergency, or even just your car breaking down unexpectedly.
Oh man, I know those unexpected expenses can really throw a wrench in your plans. So how do you actually build in this room for error?
Housel suggests creating a separate emergency fund specifically for unexpected expenses. It's about setting aside a portion of your income each month so you have a cushion to fall back on when those curveballs inevitably come your way.
That makes so much sense. It's like having a safety net so you don't have to go into debt or completely derail your financial goals when something unexpected happens.
Exactly. It's about creating financial resilience, which is crucial for moving from surviving to thriving. And you know what's really cool? This idea of a buffer applies not only to unexpected expenses, but also to our financial plans in general.
Oh, how so?
Well, you see, when we create financial plans, we often make assumptions about the future, right? How much we'll earn, how much our investments will grow, and so on. But what if those assumptions turn out to be wrong?
That's a good point. We can't predict the future with 100% certainty, so our plans need to be flexible enough to accommodate changes, right?
Exactly. That's why Housel stresses the importance of building in a margin of error. It's about making conservative estimates, leaving room for unexpected downturns, and being prepared for the possibility that things might not go exactly according to plan.
This is making me rethink my own financial planning, I tend to be a bit optimistic, assuming the best case scenario, but maybe a little dose of pessimism, or at least realism, might be a good thing.
I think that's a smart approach. Now, are you ready for another mind-bending concept from the book?
Bring it on. My brain is already buzzing with all these new ideas.
Well, this one is called Tails You Win. It's a bit of a head-scratcher at first, but it's incredibly insightful.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about this tails you win concept.
It's about recognizing that a small number of exceptional events can have an outsized impact on outcomes, especially in investing.
Oh, like those rare but huge wins that can make all the difference. Like imagine investing in a company that ends up becoming the next Amazon or Google.
Exactly. Housel points out that if you had invested in Amazon back in 1997 and held on for 20 years, you would have experienced incredible growth. But much of that growth was driven by a relatively small number of extraordinary events, like the rise of e-commerce and cloud computing.
So it's like sometimes a few key decisions or lucky breaks can have a disproportionate impact on your long-term success.
Precisely. And the key takeaway here is that it's not always about making the perfect decision every single time. It's about being open to opportunities, recognizing that sometimes luck plays a role, and being prepared to ride the wave when those big wins come your way.
This is such a good reminder. It's easy to get caught up in trying to optimize every single financial decision, but maybe it's more about being in the game, staying open to possibilities, and recognizing that sometimes those unexpected wins can make all the difference.
Exactly. It's about embracing the uncertainty and being prepared to capitalize on those rare but significant events that can shape our financial futures.
So what does this all mean for us? How do we actually apply this tails you win concept to our own lives?
Well, it's about being aware of the potential impact of these tail events, understanding that a few key decisions or opportunities can have an outsized impact on our long-term success. It's about diversifying our portfolios, being open to new ideas, and not being afraid to take calculated risks.
This is making me think about my own investment strategy.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to be a little more adventurous, a little more open to exploring new opportunities that might have the potential for those big wins.
It's all about finding the right balance between caution and calculated risk-taking. And you know what? This concept of tails you win doesn't just apply to investing. It can be applied to other areas of our lives as well.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about that.
Well, think about your career, for example. You might work hard and diligently for years, but it could be a single opportunity, a chance encounter, or a bold decision that propels your career to the next level.
That's a great point. It's like that saying, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
Exactly. So it's about being prepared, being open to new experiences, and recognizing that sometimes those seemingly random events can have a huge impact on our lives.
This is all so thought-provoking. I'm starting to see how all these concepts from the psychology of money are interconnected, how they all contribute to building a healthier, more balanced, and ultimately more successful relationship with money.
And speaking of success, let's talk about the final concept we'll cover today: freedom. This is what it's all about, right?
Absolutely. That's the ultimate goal, isn't it? To have the freedom to live life on our own terms, to make choices that align with our values, and to not be constantly stressed about money.
Exactly. And Housel argues that financial freedom, the ability to control your time in your life, is a truly valuable goal. It's about having the financial security to make those choices, whether that's spending more time with family, pursuing a passion project, or simply having the peace of mind that comes with knowing you're financially secure.
So it's not just about having a lot of money. It's about having enough money to live a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling to you.
Precisely. And the beautiful thing is, financial freedom looks different for everyone. It's about defining what matters most to you and then building a financial life that supports those values.
This is making me think about my own definition of financial freedom. What does that look like for me? What trade-offs am I willing to make to achieve that? What do you think, listener? Have you ever thought about what financial freedom means to you?
It's a great question to reflect on. And you know what's interesting? This concept of freedom ties back to many of the other ideas we've discussed today.
Oh, how so?
Well, if you're constantly worried about money, living paycheck to paycheck, it's hard to feel truly free. But if you've built a solid financial foundation, if you've embraced the concepts of enough and room for error, and if you're aware of the potential impact of tail events, you're in a much stronger position to achieve that sense of freedom.
This is making me see the bigger picture here. It's not just about following a set of financial rules. It's about understanding the psychology behind our money choices and using that knowledge to build a life that feels truly fulfilling.
Exactly. It's about shifting our mindset, being intentional with our money, and recognizing that financial success is about more than just the numbers in our bank accounts.
This has been such an enlightening conversation. We've covered so much ground already, and I'm excited to dive even deeper into the psychology of money in our next episode.
There's so much more to explore. We'll delve into practical strategies for applying these concepts to your own life and discuss how to make smarter, more fulfilling financial decisions.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the psychology of money. Before the break, we were talking about financial freedom, that magical state where you have the control and flexibility to design a life that truly aligns with your values.
And one of the things that really struck me about Housel's take on financial freedom is that it's not about hitting some arbitrary number in your bank account.
Right.
It's about making choices that reflect what truly matters to you.
So it's not necessarily about becoming a millionaire, but about having enough to live a life that feels like rich in meaning and purpose.
Exactly. It's about having the resources to pursue your passions, spend time with loved ones, and contribute to causes you care about without, constantly stressing about money.
That makes so much sense. But how do we actually get there? What are some practical steps we can take to move closer to financial freedom?
Well, Housel emphasizes the importance of building good financial habits early on. It's about paying yourself first, saving consistently, and investing wisely.
It's funny how those basic principles are often the most important, yet we sometimes overlook them in search of some magic formula.
It's true, but there's no real secret to financial success. It's about making those small, consistent choices day after day, month after month, year after year.
And avoiding those common pitfalls that can derail us along the way, right? Like, I know I've been guilty of lifestyle inflation in the past. You get a raise and suddenly you need a bigger apartment, a fancier car, more expensive clothes.
That's a classic trap. But Housel reminds us that true wealth isn't about keeping up with the Joneses. It's about having the financial security to live a life that's authentic to you without being weighed down by unnecessary expenses.
So it's about resisting that temptation to upgrade your lifestyle every time your income increases. It's about being mindful of your spending and making sure it aligns with your long-term goals. What do you think, listener? Have you ever felt that pressure to keep up with others? How have you dealt with it?
It's definitely a common struggle. And this ties back to what we were discussing earlier about defining what enough means to you. If you have a clear sense of your values and priorities, it's easier to resist those external pressures and make financial choices that truly serve you.
That's such a good point. Okay, so we've talked about building good habits and avoiding lifestyle inflation. What else can we do to pave the path to financial freedom?
Patience and long-term thinking are crucial. Remember that snowball analogy we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Compounding takes time to work its magic. It's about understanding that small, consistent actions taken over a long period of time can lead to significant results.
So it's not about getting rich quick. It's about playing the long game and trusting the process.
Exactly. Housel encourages us to think of investing as a marathon, not a sprint. It's about staying the course even when the market is volatile and trusting that time is your greatest ally.
And avoiding those emotional impulses that can lead us to make rash decisions, right?
Yeah.
Like panic selling when the market dips or chasing after the latest hot stock tip.
Absolutely. And this is where understanding our own psychology becomes so important. One of the most important takeaways from the psychology of money is that financial success isn't just about numbers. It's about understanding your own biases and emotional triggers when it comes to money.
So we need to be as aware of our own internal financial landscape as we are of the external market forces.
Exactly. Housel encourages us to examine our own relationship with money and to identify the patterns and behaviors that might be holding us back.
For example, if you know you tend to be impulsive with your spending, maybe you need to develop strategies for curbing those impulses, like setting a budget or creating a waiting period before making big purchases.
That's a great strategy. Or if you tend to avoid thinking about money altogether, maybe you need to start facing those fears and taking an active role in managing your finances.
It's like the more we understand our own financial tendencies, the better equipped we are to make choices that are in our best interest. What do you think, listener? Are there any financial habits you're trying to break or cultivate?
It's all about being honest with yourself and recognizing the areas where you might need to improve. And, sometimes it can be helpful to seek out support, whether that's from a financial advisor, a therapist, or even a trusted friend or family member who's good with money.
That's such a good point. We don't have to navigate this journey alone. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of good habits, patience, long-term thinking, and self-awareness. What else does Housel highlight as, key to achieving financial freedom?
He emphasizes the importance of aligning your financial decisions with your personal values.
This idea keeps coming up, and it really resonates with me. It's like money is just a tool, and it's up to us to decide how we want to use it.
Exactly. If you value experiences over material possessions, maybe you choose to spend your money on travel and adventures rather than on a fancy car or a big house.
Or if you're passionate about a particular cause, maybe you allocate a portion of your income to support that organization or charity.
Precisely. It's about making conscious choices that reflect what truly matters to you. And this ties back to the concept of enough that we discussed earlier.
Oh, how so?
Well, if you're constantly chasing after more and more money, you'll never feel truly satisfied. But if you define what enough means to you, if you're clear about what you need to live a fulfilling life, you're more likely to make financial choices that support your values and bring you joy.
That's such a powerful reminder. It's not about accumulating wealth for the sake of wealth. It's about using money as a tool to create a life that feels rich in meaning and purpose.
Exactly. And Housel reminds us that money isn't just about numbers and spreadsheets. It's about emotions, psychology, and human behavior.
Yes. We've been talking about this all episode, and it's such a crucial point. Our emotions can play such a big role in our financial decisions, often leading us astray.
And that's why it's so important to be aware of those emotions, to understand how they might be influencing our choices. Housel provides a lot of great insights into how fear, greed, optimism, and even regret can shape our financial behavior.
This is making me think about all the times I've made a financial decision based on, fear or anxiety, selling an investment at a loss because I was worried about losing even more money.
That's a common experience, but Housel encourages us to pause, to take a step back, and to really examine those emotions before making any big financial decisions.
So it's about developing that emotional intelligence, that ability to understand and manage our emotions, especially when it comes to money.
Exactly. And, this ties back to the concept of room for error that we discussed earlier. If you have a financial cushion, if you're prepared for unexpected events, you're less likely to make impulsive decisions based on fear or anxiety.
That's such a good point. It's like having that financial security gives you the space to make more rational, less emotionally driven choices.
Exactly. It's about creating that sense of stability and peace of mind, which can make all the difference when it comes to managing our money effectively.
This is making me think about all the different pieces of the financial puzzle, how all these concepts from the psychology of money fit together to create a more holistic picture of how we interact with money.
It's not just about numbers and spreadsheets. It's about understanding ourselves, our motivations, our biases, and our emotions.
And using that knowledge to make choices that are in our best interests, both financially and personally.
Exactly. It's about creating a financial life that feels authentic, fulfilling, and ultimately freeing.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation. We've explored some really powerful concepts from the psychology of money today, and I'm excited to continue this journey in our next episode. We'll delve into even more practical strategies for applying these ideas to your own life and discuss how to build a healthier, more fulfilling relationship with money.
We'll be right back after a quick break to wrap up our deep dive into the psychology of money.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the psychology of money. We've covered so much ground, from unraveling our emotional baggage around money to embracing the long game of compounding.
And now as we wrap up this exploration, I think it's helpful to step back and consider the bigger picture that Housel paints in his book. He really challenges us to rethink our relationship with money, to view it as a tool for enabling a richer life, not just a means to accumulate wealth for the sake of it.
That's such a crucial point. It's like we often get so caught up in the numbers, the strategies, the constant pursuit of more that we lose sight of what really matters.
Exactly. And one of the most impactful takeaways for me, and perhaps for you listening as well, is this idea of focusing on what you can control. We can't predict the market with certainty. We can't control every financial outcome. But we can control our own behaviors, our savings habits, our investment strategies.
It's like shifting our focus from the things that are outside of our control to the things that we can actually influence, right? That feels empowering, almost like taking back a sense of agency.
Precisely. And that's where real power lies. It's about focusing on the things we can influence and accepting that some things will always remain outside of our control. It's a recipe for greater peace of mind in the often turbulent world of personal finance.
It's funny how so much of this comes back to mindset, to shifting our perspective. Like we were talking earlier about the importance of long-term thinking and how that can help us ride out those inevitable market dips and avoid making rash decisions based on fear or panic.
Absolutely. Housel really emphasizes the importance of viewing financial decisions through a long-term lens. It's so easy to get caught up in the short term, to worry about every market fluctuation or interest rate hike.
Yeah.
But he reminds us that time is our greatest ally when it comes to building wealth.
It's about patience, consistency, and trusting that the power of compounding will work its magic over time. It's like planting a seed and nurturing it, knowing that with time and care, it will eventually grow into something strong and beautiful.
That's a beautiful analogy. And this long-term perspective ties into the idea of leaving room for error, which we also discussed earlier. Life is full of surprises, and things don't always go according to plan. Building a financial cushion allows us to navigate those unexpected bumps in the road without completely derailing our progress.
It's like accepting that we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to predict every outcome. We just need to be prepared for the inevitable twists and turns that life throws our way.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging our human fallibility and building a financial plan that's flexible enough to accommodate those inevitable surprises.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the psychology of money, I want to leave you with one final thought. We've explored so many insightful concepts, but ultimately, it all comes down to this. What truly matters to you in life? What are your values? What brings you joy and fulfillment?
And how can you use money as a tool to support those values and create a life that is rich in meaning and purpose? The psychology of money reminds us that financial success is not just about the numbers in our bank accounts. It's about living a life that's aligned with our values and brings us a sense of purpose and fulfillment.
That's such a powerful message. It's not about chasing some arbitrary definition of success. It's about crafting a life that feels authentic and meaningful to you.
Precisely. And if you're ready to explore these ideas further and gain a deeper understanding of your own financial psychology, I highly recommend checking out The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. It's a book that will challenge your assumptions, expand your perspective, and empower you to take control of your financial future.
And remember, the journey to financial freedom is a marathon, not a sprint. Be patient, be consistent, and be kind to yourself along the way.
Happy diving.
Until next time, keep diving deep.